All right, so chapter 26, World War I and the Russian Revolution. Section 2, a new kind of war. So why did many hope World War I would be the war to end all wars? Look at the stalemate that developed, how technology made World War I different from earlier wars, and then a quick look at the course of the war on other fronts. So again, going back, the von Schlieffen plan. The biggest concern that Germany has is that they're going to fight a two-front war, that they're going to have Russia, which is on the eastern front, and then fighting against France on the western front, and Germany sandwiched between the two of them. And that's their largest fear. So going back to the 1800s, Bismarck had von Schlieffen develop a plan to deal with this particular crisis. And the idea is that they're going to go through Belgium, the Ardennes forest, which most people wouldn't expect anybody to try and do, and hopefully surprise France, knock them out of the war before Russia could even mobilize. And a couple of things really screw up this von Schlieffen plan. One is going through Belgium isn't nearly as easy as they anticipated, and the Belgian people put up a tougher resistance than they expected. Another factor is Russia was able to get their stuff together more quickly and advance to the front faster than Germany anticipated, so Germany had to divide up their troops earlier than they expected. And one of the key battles here is the Battle of the Marne, where they're able to stop the German advances, and then you pretty much get this stalemate that exists the rest of the war. And a stalemate just means neither side moves very far one way or the other. And so this picture that you see in the bottom left, that shows these trenches that they dug. They're zigzagged again, so that way someone couldn't shoot just straight down. It was a protection, a defense mechanism in case someone got into the trenches. So another factor here is the technology that makes it a new kind of war. These are the things that are being used for the very first time. The big problem that generals have is they have these new weapons and they're using old techniques and tactics, and that just doesn't mix very well. And so when this war is over, because of the large death toll, because of the mustard gas, because of these modern weapons, people are hoping that there'll never be a war like this again. So this will be the war that ends all wars. If we look at the Eastern Front and Russia's end of things, Russia is not industrialized, they're not modernized, and they don't have any of the modern weapons that everybody else has. And so they're just not equipped whatsoever. What they do have is they have lots of bodies. And so the death toll for the Russians adds up very quickly. As the war kind of goes, more and more countries join in. So you get the Balkans, Southern Europe, eventually the Ottoman Empire. There's some that switch sides. For example, Italy. Italy reaches a secret agreement with the French and the British where they're going to pick up some port cities and some land in the Balkans in exchange for switching sides. The other thing is that this trench warfare is just brutal. People are living, sleeping in the trenches. There's foot rot. It's just a miserable war all the way around. So when the Ottoman Empire joins, they have a pretty strategic location. It's going to help out. And we've talked about the Armenian genocide in the previous chapter. When we look at colonies, the colonies are used for a variety of different things. They provide troops to help fight the war. They also provide needed workers and supplies for the war effort. From the perspective of the colonies, they're not quite exactly sure how they necessarily feel about this. They resent the fact that they're treated as second-class citizens and that they're forced to fight this war that really isn't their fight. But at the same time, they hope that if they do this, they're going to gain their independence or even maybe citizenship and become not second-class citizens, but first-class citizens, maybe in the British Empire or the French Empire. And that's kind of an attractive alternative. And so they really aren't quite sure how they fit or where they want to go. So the book talks about All Quiet on the Western Front. It's a book written by someone who lived through World War I, and it describes the warfare and how horrific it is. So when we look at winning the war, what factors most contributed to the Allies in World War I? How it's a total war, the effect of warfare on morale, the causes and effects of U.S. entry into the war, and then the events that led to the end of the war. And again, because of modern weapons, this is a total war. It requires all of a country's resources. People resources, economic resources, all of it. And so when we look at these economies, they have to convert from peacetime to wartime. So in order to get workers to become soldiers, they institute a draft. They have to raise money because this is a really expensive war because of modern weapons and because of how long the war is. They have to limit access of civilians to certain things because they're needed for the war effort. And they really need to make sure that the economy works in a way so they set prices and they prevent labor unions from going on strike. Another impact here is that Great Britain wants to prevent Germany from getting the supplies that they need to continue to fight the war. So they blockade Germany and they prevent ships and trade from getting into Germany. In response, Germany uses U-boats to sink these ships or attack ships that are bringing supplies to Great Britain. Now this blockade gets a little messy because according to international law, it's okay for Great Britain to stop the ships and to remove things like weapons and ammunition and armaments, those things that are used in fighting. What they're not allowed to take is food and medical supplies. Well, Great Britain really wants to cripple the German Empire, so they're going to just take everything. And so in some ways, Germany's a little bit justified in the use of U-boats, although they do kill innocent civilians along the way. The other aspect of fighting an entire war is this propaganda campaign. You really need to get everyone on board. And you need to get everyone working towards one common goal, which is winning this war. And so anything opposite of that is really not good. They paint opposition. Anyone who opposes this as like for example, the United States, as being anti-American. So it's something that gets people all moving in one direction. This provides opportunities for women. As men go overseas to fight, women go into factories. You start to see all other sorts of things. But the other thing is, long term, it's going to have the impact on women in that they're going to have a renewed pride and confidence that they can do these jobs, that they can do this work, and that they deserve the right to vote and to be treated as equal citizens with everybody else. As this war drags on, more and more people are getting tired of it. The casualties rack up, the limited supplies, the increased prices, all of that makes it harder and harder and harder to stay fired up and mobilized. And so these countries are really going to start to struggle. The Russian Revolution is going to have a major impact. The Russian people aren't able to continue to fight. So Russia signs a treaty with Germany called the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which ends the Russian involvement in the war, and now Germany no longer has a two-front war. So the United States, why do they join? A major factor is the unrestricted submarine warfare. That drags and changes American opinion. The Zimmerman Note also kind of makes Americans not very happy with Germany, and so they start to slide more and more towards getting involved in the war, and eventually that's going to happen April 1917, and troops start coming in 1918. Another factor is Wilson has this plan, this vision for world peace. He knows in order for him to make that vision come to fruition, he needs to be part of the war so they can be part of the peace process. So the Germans launch a huge offensive, hoping to end this war before more and more Americans start showing up in Europe. But in July, American troops start to arrive in large numbers, and they're able to start to slowly push the Germans back. Pretty early in the fall, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire drop out of the war, and by November 11th, on the 11th day, 11th hour, an armistice is signed that ends the war.